So imagine for a second that you are running for your life. Like a coordinated malicious mob is actively trying to destroy you.
Yeah, a totally terrifying scenario.
Right. And your only defense, your only possible move is to step into a courtroom. But here is the catch. The judge in this courtroom bypasses all the physical evidence and can literally, read your mind.
Which is just a wild concept.
It really is. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today we are looking at a single ancient source, Psalm 7 from the New International Version, and we have got historical research and some really fascinating notes on the cultural context to go with it.
Yeah, because it is technically categorized as a religious text,
Hmm.
but as we're about to see, it actually reads a lot more like a high-stakes psychological thriller.
Exactly. Our mission today is to just unpack this really desperate plea for justice. We're going to explore the mechanisms of innocence, vengeance, and the self-destructive nature of evil.
I think most people, when they approach ancient texts, they expect, I don't know, quiet contemplation.
Right, like gentle moral philosophy.
Yeah, exactly. We tend to envision serene pastures and calm meditation. But Psalm 7 completely shatters that expectation. It is this adrenaline-fueled piece of literature.
Oh, absolutely. It's packed with like cosmic courtrooms and flaming arrows being readied for battle, and people literally being torn apart by wild animals.
Right. The intensity of the imagery is just off the charts. It reflects a very raw human experience of feeling entirely surrounded and unjustly attacked.
So, to really grasp the gravity of this text and understand what it offers to you as a modern listener, we have to jump in exactly where the author does.
Which is hitting the ground running.
Yes, literally running, because the speaker in this text is a fugitive. The notes accompanying the text identify it with a very specific historical marker. It's labeled as a Shiggaion of David, sung to the Lord concerning Cush, a Benjamite.
And, those terms probably sound like ancient trivia to most people.
For sure, they sound super academic.
Right, but they actually set up the entire psychological landscape of the crisis here.
Yeah, let's break that down. Let's look at Shiggaion first. What exactly does that mean?
Well, scholars debate the exact translation, but the root of the word strongly suggests a wandering, erratic, or highly emotional song.
So it's not a polite, structured hymn.
Not at all. The very rhythm of the poem is meant to mirror the chaotic, frantic physical state of being hunted.
Wow. And then you have the target of the song, right? Cush, a Benjamite.
Yeah, and that detail is crucial. That elevates this from just some petty personal squabble to a matter of state-sponsored persecution.
Because King Saul was a Benjamite.
Correct. David at this time was viewed as a direct political rival to the throne. So by naming a Benjamite, the text implies that David is facing systemic institutional power.
He isn't just dealing with, like, an annoying neighbor.
No, he is up against an entire regime with the resources to crush him. And yet, when David describes the threat, he completely strips Cush of his political titles and his humanity.
Right. He begs for rescue and warns that if help doesn't arrive, the enemy will, quote, tear me apart like a lion and rip me to pieces with no one to rescue me.
This shift from a named political operative to a wild beast is incredibly jarring.
It really is. When we think of a lion attack, we think of something totally primal, right? Something that operates purely on instinct.
Exactly. You cannot reason with a hungry lion. You can't, negotiate a treaty with it.
Right. And if we bring this into the modern world, I mean, most of us aren't literally fleeing wild predators or hostile regimes, but that emotional state is universally recognizable.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about the modern experience of a vicious, coordinated attack on a person's reputation.
Yeah, the mechanics of ancient persecution and modern public shaming are remarkably similar.
Like when a workplace smear campaign begins, or a social media mob descends on someone, the person being targeted feels completely cornered.
And the people attacking stop looking like colleagues or peers.
Exactly. The mob mentality takes over, and they start acting like a pack of lions, just waiting to rip a person's character to pieces. I mean, the algorithm almost rewards that predatory behavior online.
It does, and the text highlights a profound psychological truth about human conflict here. When humans act with pure malice, they strip away their own humanity in the eyes of their victims.
They literally become the predator.
Right. The victim no longer sees a person with motives, they just see teeth.
Just teeth.
Yeah.
That is such a vivid way to put it. And facing that kind of primal threat, the instinct is usually to hide, right, or to beg for a shield. But the author here does something radically different.
He really does. Instead of just pleading for a rescue, he steps out into the open and essentially invites his own destruction.
Yeah, he basically hooks himself up to the most lethal lie detector test imaginable.
That's a great way to describe it.
In verses 3 through 5, David lays out this highly specific conditional curse on himself. He says, Lord my God, if I have done this, and there is guilt on my hands, if I have repaid my ally with evil or without cause, have robbed my foe, then let my enemy pursue and overtake me.
It goes even further.
Yeah, he says, let him trample my life to the ground and make me sleep in the dust. I have to pause and push back on this because it feels wildly arrogant to me.
Really? Arrogant how?
Well, how can anyone be so absolutely sure they haven't wronged their enemy in some way? To say, make me sleep in the dust, that means totally erasing his life and legacy.
Yeah, it's the ultimate consequence.
Right. It almost feels naive to take that massive of a gamble. Like, what if his memory's flawed? What if he did do something wrong and just forgot?
I mean, that reaction makes complete sense to a modern mindset, right? We understand human fallibility, the nuances of conflict, but we really have to view this through the lens of an ancient Near Eastern honor and shame culture.
Okay, so it's a cultural difference.
Exactly. David is not claiming universal moral perfection here. He is not saying he has never made a mistake in his entire life.
Oh, I see.
He is zeroing in on the specific, fabricated charges being used to hunt him. He explicitly says, if I have done this.
So he is bounding the oath to the specific political accusations being whispered by the Benjamites.
Yes. He is laying his very existence on the line regarding those specific lies. In an honor culture, a shattered reputation is equivalent to social death anyway.
Right, so he has nothing left to lose.
Precisely. When you are falsely accused by an entire system, absolute certainty and radical vulnerability are really the only remaining antidotes. By making this conditional oath, he demonstrates what true, desperate integrity looks like under extreme pressure.
Wow. So the injustice burns so deeply that he prefers actual death to living under the weight of a false conviction.
Exactly. And it reframes the entire concept of a courtroom. He is turning the lion's den into a tribunal.
He is literally handing the executioner the axe and saying, use this on me if you can prove I am guilty.
And that profound level of vulnerability is the necessary prerequisite for the venue change he demands next.
Right, because realizing that the earthly courts, the tribal networks, and the political systems are entirely rigged against him, he escalates the case.
He bypasses the local jurisdiction entirely.
Which brings us to the cosmic courtroom in verse 6. I love this part. The camera essentially pans out from a tight, frantic close-up of a fugitive to this massive, sweeping, wide shot of the universe.
It's a huge shift in scale.
It is. He pleads for the Lord to, quote, arise in anger, to rise up against the rage of my enemies and to decree justice. He asks the assembled peoples to gather around God, who sits enthroned over them on high.
The language here expands God's role from just a personal tribal deity into a universal magistrate.
Right. Up until this point, David has been asking for personal deliverance, like save me from the lion.
But here the function of the divine shifts. God is elevated above the petty partisan conflicts of human kingdoms and is framed as an impartial, righteous judge over all assembled peoples.
It is basically the equivalent of taking a corrupt local case straight to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy.
The local judge is bribed, the jury is compromised, the media is hostile, so you demand a hearing before the highest authority.
But there is a terrifying catch here.
Right. This Chief Justice doesn't just review the evidence files. The text explicitly notes that this God probes minds and hearts.
Which is the core mechanism of ultimate justice in this worldview. You cannot restore moral order to the cosmos based on hearsay or circumstantial evidence.
You need the whole truth.
Exactly. The judge must have omniscient access to the raw data of human intention. Now, for the guilty, a mind-reading judge is a horrifying prospect.
Oh, for sure. Terrifying.
But for the innocent person who is being smeared by a sophisticated disinformation campaign, it is an immense comfort.
Because the truth doesn't need a PR team. It just needs a judge who can see through the performance.
That is exactly it.
And that makes perfect sense for the fact-finding phase, right? The judge probes the hearts, the truth is revealed, and the righteous are vindicated. But
a gavel doesn't stop a lion.
No, it does not.
We have this beautiful image of a judge sitting on a high throne decreeing justice, but, a decree is useless without the power to enforce it. If the guilty party simply refuses to acknowledge the verdict, what happens?
That friction is exactly what drives the text into its most intimidating imagery.
Yeah, verse 10.
Right. The author recognizes that a systemic fix against entrenched evil requires more than just a legal ruling. It requires force.
So the text transitions from a courtroom to a battlefield.
It does. It states, "My shield is God Most High, who saves the upright in heart," and then it immediately warns that God is a righteous judge who displays his wrath every day.
The escalation here is honestly jarring. The text says that if the wicked do not relent, the judge steps down from the bench and literally arms himself.
Yeah, the phrasing is intense.
It says he will sharpen his sword, he will bend and string his bow. He has prepared his deadly weapons, he makes ready his flaming arrows.
It's a huge leap. It really is. The imagery shifts so violently from a thoughtful magistrate to a warrior literally lighting arrows on fire.
Well, we really need to unpack the theological and psychological function of this divine warrior imagery, because modern readers often struggle with the idea of a wrathful or violent deity.
Yeah, it can make people pretty uncomfortable today.
But consider the position of the victim here. Against a regime that refuses to stop hunting you, abstract justice is entirely insufficient.
You need something tangible.
Right. The sharpened sword and flaming arrows represent the active, inescapable enforcement of the decree. Goodness in this text is not weak.
It's not passive.
No, it does not merely turn the other cheek while the lion consumes it. Righteousness is backed by a formidable, active force.
So it basically outsources the violence. The victim doesn't have to pick up the sword because the universal judge is already stringing the bow.
Yes, that is the crucial psychological mechanism at play.
Which makes a lot of sense because if you fight back with violence, you risk becoming just as bad as the people attacking you.
Exactly. In ancient cultures, blood feuds and cycles of human revenge could decimate generations.
Just constant retaliation.
Right. So by placing the ultimate violence, the flaming arrows, strictly in the hands of the divine, the human victim is freed from having to take violent revenge themselves.
Oh, wow. That's really profound.
It prevents the oppressed from having to become monsters just to survive. They can trust that the enforcement of justice is targeted, swift, and completely out of their hands.
It is a sobering concept. While the perpetrators are plotting someone's downfall, this invisible archer is systematically pulling back a flaming arrow aimed directly at them.
It's a powerful deterrent.
But the text doesn't rely solely on this divine intervention to solve the problem, which I find really fascinating.
Yeah, there's another layer to it entirely.
Right. Despite this terrifying arsenal waiting in the wings, the author reveals a secondary, almost mundane mechanism of justice. Evil often meets a highly pathetic, self-inflicted end.
The also provides a profound observation regarding the mechanics of malice in verses 14 through 16. The language shifts from cosmic warfare to biological and agricultural metaphors.
Yeah, it says, "Whoever is pregnant with evil conceives trouble and gives birth to disillusionment."
Pregnant with evil is a highly evocative phrase.
It really is. It completely removes the idea that true malice is just a sudden, spontaneous mistake.
Exactly. It implies a grueling process of gestation. The perpetrators sit around, they plot, they nurture their hatred, they feed it over time.
Like a full-time job.
It takes a tremendous amount of energy to carry that kind of malice. But the text argues that the eventual payoff, the birth, never yields the satisfaction they anticipate. It only produces disillusionment.
Right. And then the text pairs that biological metaphor with an incredibly physical, practical one.
The digging of the pit.
Yes. It says, "Whoever digs a hole and scoops it out falls into the pit they have made. The trouble they cause recoils on them. Their violence comes down on their own heads."
It's a classic image.
Honestly, it sounds almost like cartoon physics to me. Like, Wile E. Coyote spends the entire episode meticulously painting a fake tunnel on a rock and rigging explosives to catch the roadrunner, only to step back, admire his work, and have the anvil drop squarely on his own head.
I mean, the cartoon analogy definitely works for the structure of the event.
Right, the boomerang effect.
Yeah, but we should ground it in the physical reality of the ancient world, too. Digging a trap for an animal or a human enemy was exhausting, physically dangerous labor.
Oh, true. No backhoes back then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You were out there scooping heavy dirt by hand, operating in secret, often in the dark, on increasingly unstable ground.
It takes backbreaking effort to ruin someone else's life.
And that is the mechanical point the text is making. The sheer amount of labor required to sustain a malicious campaign inherently destabilizes the ground beneath the perpetrator.
So the effort itself is what ruins them.
Yes, malice requires you to operate blindly. You become so fixated on destroying the other person that you lose awareness of your own footing. The deeper the pit you dig for your enemy, the harder it is for you to climb out when you inevitably stumble into it yourself. Evil, according to this text, is structurally unsound. It carries the seeds of its own destruction.
That completely reframes the concept of vindication. The person who's fleeing from the lion at the beginning of the text doesn't actually have to fight back.
No, they don't.
They just have to survive long enough to watch the predator exhaust itself and collapse under the weight of its own trap.
Which brings a profound sense of psychological relief to the author. Seeing the dual reality of justice, the forceful defense of the divine warrior, and the inherent self-destruction of malice brings the crisis to a resolution.
And what a resolution it is. After navigating screaming fugitives, cosmic mind-reading courtrooms, flaming arrows, and self-sabotaging villains, the text completely downshifts for its outro.
It really takes a breath.
It does. Verse 17 offers a simple, grounded conclusion. It says, "I will give thanks to the Lord because of his righteousness. I will sing the praises of the name of the Lord Most High." The panic is entirely gone.
The frantic, erratic rhythm of the Shiggaion resolves into a confident declaration of praise. The author has processed the trauma through the lens of ultimate justice and emerged on the other side with genuine gratitude.
It is just a remarkable progression for a single piece of literature. We have explored the visceral reality of feeling hunted by an unreasoning mob and the necessity of rigorous, vulnerable integrity when your entire legacy is on the line.
And we discussed the psychological comfort of escalating a corrupted situation to a universal judge.
Right, one who sees through the spin directly to the intentions of the heart.
We also uncovered the mechanisms of justice itself in this worldview. The text offers the active, forceful defense that outsources vengeance to the divine, preventing the victim from becoming a perpetrator.
Which is huge.
Yeah, and it highlights the quiet, inevitable reality that hatred is an exhausting labor that ultimately swallows the hunter.
It leaves us with a really profound framework for understanding human conflict and, where we look for vindication when systems fail us. Which brings us to the end of today's deep dive. But before we wrap up, we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder on your own, directly inspired by the two visions of justice we just unpacked today.
It's a great question to reflect on.
Think about a time when you are facing unfair treatment or when a coordinated mob seems to be circling you. Which image brings you more genuine comfort? Is it the theological promise of a divine warrior actively stepping in and preparing flaming arrows to defend you? Or is it the quiet psychological certainty that those who dedicate their lives to digging pits for others will always, eventually, fall into the darkness of their own making?
Something to really think about.
Definitely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Hopefully, the next time you find yourself navigating a landscape where the systems are compromised and everything feels murky, you will remember that sometimes the most profound clarity comes from embracing radical integrity, stepping out of the cycle of revenge, and letting the trap diggers dig their own way down. We will catch you on the next deep dive.